All right, good morning on this Friday morning, September 18th. Welcome to Movement and Meditation. My name is Patton White, and I am coming to you from the Beacon Dance Studio in the B Complex, which is in the Capitol View neighborhood of Southwest Atlanta. And we are part of an artist-owned and operated cooperative, and are just super excited to be hosting this ongoing series of workshops or classes, however you want to view them, through the end of this calendar year, so through the end of December. And this week we have been focusing on our developmental movement as partly informed by the work of Bonnie Bainbridge Cohen and her work that she calls body-mind centering, but also taking into consideration other somatic art forms, and then also on Fridays we let the story circles that we do on Wednesday mornings, we let those, the information that is gleaned from those meetings, to filter in to this continuation of what we start on Monday. And so, as I said, we are working on developmental movement. So those movement patterns that began even before we were born, but then continued to develop up until wherever we find ourselves in our lives right now. So we had several people on our Story Circle Zoom, and the prompt this week was about sharing story, a memorable moment from childhood. And so all of these images that we were working with come from these recollections of different people from childhood. And I'm going to try not to talk as much today, and to rather invite and to demonstrate and to encourage and that sort of thing. And I'm also going to be getting up and out of off of my stool, but then also returning to my stool periodically, so that you can see how all of this can be adapted to either being standing or seated. So to begin us off, we're going to spend some time with this image of grass in the wind, just gently blowing. So we're not talking about the wind that just came through Atlanta last night, the remnants of the hurricane that devastated the coast of Alabama and Florida, a little bit into Mississippi. Rather, we are going to think of a gentle, soft wind, just gently blowing. We're talking about these long, thin blades or stems of grass, the grasses that have those little tufts at the end of them. And I'm going to go ahead and take this opportunity to stand and continue this movement in a standing position. Just this idea of softly blowing grass in the wind. We're shifting our weight, allowing the upper part of the head to bend and sway with soft breezes. Breathing in and out as we continue this action. Feeling the lengthening happening in the spine. Making sure, maybe taking your hands or fingertips and just placing them up here on your jaw muscles to make sure we're not clenching those in any way. We're trying to release. We might even let the mouth open ever so slightly. allowing the jaw to release. If we're standing, allowing the pelvis to drop down between the two legs. If you're seated, just grounding the pelvis into the stool or chair. We can have our eyes open or closed. And let's go ahead and let the wind get just ever so slightly stronger. Again, not hurricane force, but just ever so slightly stronger. And maybe we're beginning to allow the weight to shift from one foot to the other. Maybe our eyes open and we begin to see specific things around the space that we're in. Feeling the joints soft, not rigid. And now we're going to begin to shift our dynamics into more quick movement and more, almost sort of more literal as well. We're going to work with the image now of getting dressed as quickly as you can. So let's begin to feel how chilly, and we maybe need to rub the body a little bit to get it warmed up. And we're going to go ahead and reach, and we're going to go ahead and put on our shirt and button it up, or pull over a top and get the arms up and pull it down. So however you are going to get dressed, pulling on maybe some pants or a skirt or getting a dress on, but whatever action that you want to be doing that's about quickly getting dressed as fast as you can, maybe putting on a coat or an extra sweater, or wrapping some scarves around you, maybe putting on a hat, fixing your hair, getting ready, and it's cold, but you're slowly warming up because you're finally dressed. And now we're going to just take a moment and just feel, sense for yourself. What does it feel like after that brisk movement, after the slow and sustained movement? What are you sensing now? Can you feel all the different layers of clothing on you now? Even if you don't necessarily have all of those layers that you just put on figuratively, literally. All right, now we're going to shift our image just ever so slightly, well, actually more than just slightly, kind of radically. So now it's super hot outside and we're inside. I'm going to go ahead and try some of this movement seated, just as a contrast for me. So now I'm placing myself intentionally in front of an air conditioner. I've never had an air conditioner before, and for the first time I'm feeling the cooling sensation of the cool, drier air blowing onto my body. Let's maybe start to find different surfaces that you want to allow the air conditioner to cool off. Maybe you're feeling all of this sweat that is slowly moistening all surfaces of your skin. And because it's so hot, we might want to take some of those layers of clothes off, placing the clothing down on the ground. temperature fluctuations and cooling. Feeling that cool air blow across the surface of the body. And now we're going to begin to really listen to the sound, the music that we're listening to today. What different body parts can you listen with? You know, our ears are always the main thing that we think about listening with, but we can also listen with different parts of the body. Parts of the body. People who have various disabilities may find that they listen in different ways. What is your body telling you? As we began to learn some of these movement patterns that have become second nature to us. And continuing on our little journey through these memory stories, we're going to shift now to steadying ourselves. So again, you can do this standing or seated. I'm choosing to try steadying myself through standing. I'm going to challenge myself and steady myself on one leg. Challenge myself and steady myself as I extend my other limbs that are not in contact with the floor. Continuing to change. So again, we can be doing this on both feet. This is just some of the choices that I'm making. How do I steady myself? If I feel like I'm hanging from a rope up above, how do I steady myself if I feel like there's a strong wind? This is where our hurricane force winds come in, blowing at me from the front or from the side, steadying myself by kind of leaning into where the wind's coming from. And now for contrast, we're going to add a sense of falling. So I'm coming to a center place where I'm steadying myself, and then I'm going to fall. And my falling starts with a leaning and then a catching. But again, if we're seated, we can also use the legs to support us as we fall. We can use our abdominal muscles. We can suspend a limb and let it fall. So we're playing now with this idea of steadying and falling. Steadying ourselves and falling. Steadying ourselves falling. I'm going to increase my pace a little bit, going from the steadying action and taking the falling action even smaller. Steady, fall. Steady, fall. And continuing to play with this for yourself. How do we steady ourselves? When are we falling in our lives? What circumstances have caused us to either literally fall or steady ourselves? Now, as you can see there towards the end of my steadying and falling improvisation, I was beginning to really find that sense of stopping somewhere. I'm going to continue and just focus on that idea of stopping. So I'm moving through space, I'm making the choice to move through space, locomote with my feet, or I can move and stop just the limbs themselves. Being very clear about where I'm stopping. Now I'm going to combine these two things of locomotion and reaching. Reaching or pushing. Pushing, reaching. Different body parts to reach or stop. How many quick little stops can you include in a very short period of time? How do the stops almost begin to not be seen because they're so quick that, just like how the original movies were, a series of stop or still pictures that strung together, you see movement. Finding. So our gliding movement, our smooth movement, with just a slight change in our intention, can take on a new texture or meaning for us. All right, let's move into throwing. And again, I'm continuing to shift for myself, being up or down, throwing or catching. Throwing, catching, throwing, catching. Qualitatively. Being clear. And again, all of these images we're working with came from real life recollections of memorable moments in childhood. Some of the stories were about ages, maybe 3 or 4. Some were 9 or 10. So sort of this range of young bodies, young minds. And our last image we're going to work with, our last two actually, are flying how can we free ourselves to feel the sense of flying? The story that this came from was one of learning how to ride a bicycle. And so we have that balance of the two wheels and finding, so this kind of relates to our steadying, but also the freedom of the rolling wheels that you're on, the freedom, that sense of flying that bicycling brings to us. And to bring us to a close today, our very last image is just rocking. So back to this swaying action, but this is a little bit more internal, rocking with a baby doll. And so I'm coming back to the center core, my spine, and I'm really feeling that intentional. This isn't about the wind blowing me, but I'm intentionally rocking. Maybe we're connecting to when we were parents, a young child in our arms, or if we had pets. I know I used to have a cat that I would love to cradle in my arms and just rock with. Coming all the way back into the center of the body. Maybe we're the baby doll, and we are being rocked in somebody's arms. So as we wrap up today, we can take these various images. I'll invite you to keep thinking about memorable moments from childhood. What are some of the things that make those moments so memorable? How can we pay attention to the physical sensations that we were experiencing at the time? How did our bodies feel? How were our minds being informed by the sensations that were going on in our bodies? How were our minds informing how our bodies continue to develop movement patterns and habits. Next week, we will be shifting slightly to some of these patterns that go beyond. Well, they're still part of our developmental patterns. They're about finding balance, righting ourselves. How we proprioception and allowing ourselves to really experience ourselves in the external world, and it's at this point that we begin developmentally to really begin to develop our sense of selves as well. So that's what we have in store for next week, and thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and I look forward to seeing you on Monday at 11 a.m. Thanks. Bye-bye. Oh, forgot one important thing, and that is, again, thank you to Fulton County Arts Council for funding this project. So now I'll say goodbye. This is the real one. Bye-bye.